To continue moving forward, we now see like they're in this, which was kind of giving me Space Jam 2 feels a little bit, because we see Zola and Ultron in like this digital space, like in the algorithm. And they're kind of going through a little power thing in there, and Zola basically takes over Ultron's body, and he's like, oh, it's been a long time since I've had legs, and
Yeah, they like have like a whole meeting of the minds.
right. And something I didn't touch on, which it's coming up now actually. So they have that moment, and Ultron is kind of like there's like this meeting of the minds, and then his body ends up just like falling, and it's like on the ground. And in this moment, Killmonger comes over, and he's like, and he basically does like a little bit of that, and he is able to take the stones with this vibranium, connection thing, and he builds his own like vibranium soul super Infinity Stone super suit. Go ahead, J'Aaron.
So one thing we didn't call back to. So one thing I wish we would have got more of. See, this is one of those episodes that like left me wanting more. Like I wanted more. So when he pulls like the ragtag team together, we don't get that scene or that sequence that just kind of like builds up their camaraderie, I guess, or like signifies them as a team. But he also plucked them from like very different universes. But as soon as Killmonger shows up, Gamora is not feeling him at all. Like
Yes.
we did certain like scenes where it cuts, and she like giving him a hard side eye, like whoever this is, he ain't on the same page that we're on. And
Yes,
they never like, she never vocalizes it. She's just like, no, she does. At one point,
she
like,
does.
Are y'all sure y'all trust this guy?
Exactly. That's when
he good people.
Yeah, okay, so two things. When they first arrive in the pub and you see Thor has one of the drone's heads, they basically cut so that you can see Killmonger is like eyeing this tech.
You can see him doing the math in his head, trying to figure out
exactly
how this works.
And then once they're there, and like Ultron comes down from the sky when Thor unintentionally attracts him, that's when Gamora is like, do y'all trust this guy? Because she's seeing the way Killmonger is like eyeing the stones and Ultron, and she's like, I know we from different universes, but yeah. So
something about him is,
and she was right. I wish she would have vocalized it a little bit more. Before we jump to when Ultron, before they get the pin Ultron for the Stone Crusher, they do the same camera movement, which was the scene and the moment that J'Aaron had wanted from the very beginning, was like the reveal of like the Avengers assembling type of thing. Like they did all of that. And I think it could have been even better if, like you said, J'Aaron, they had more of that, a little bit of like leading up into the team camaraderie a little bit, because the thing about the show, which we always say, is like 30 minutes kind of seems like really good for it. And because we're fans and we already know the story, it's like they could just get to it. But then sometimes you want a little bit of that, like the meaty and the fat,
Well, the
Go
reason
ahead.
that shot was so significant in the film is that's when they all solidified as a team, because they struggled through half of the movie just trying to get it together. Like they weren't communicating, they weren't on the same page, they were like fumbling the ball throughout the movie. When they did that shot, the reason that shot is so important is because that's when we signify, all right, this is a legit team. So when we get this shot in What If, it's kind of like, but we needed that, like that precursor to it, because like Thor, he's so, I think, because I saw online, some people took it as like someone was saying like, I don't like this dumb Thor, and I don't think that it's that Thor was dumb. In his mind, he's a god, so everybody else is like ants to him. So he's just like, okay, kill Ultron. What's next? Bada boom, let's move on. So he's not really paying attention. Gamora is like super layers it in on her goal. Captain Carter, she's just trying to assess the situation, but we needed something before that to kind of like, and that's what I mean by when I was saying earlier in the season, like I kind of wish that we didn't get the backlog of the movies, because if you're here, you know what it is. Let's go. You know what I mean? But I think they're Marvel's also trying to set the stage for people who may be new to this. Because like I
Right.
have a friend that's watching What If, and he doesn't watch any of the Marvel movies, so he's like calling me and texting me, and I'm like, "Oh, baby, you got to start from the very beginning. We This is like, if you are a true diehard fan, this is your reward because you've done the work." I was like, "You got to go back because you won't even understand what I'm about to like. Take everything you know and then flip it on its head. Like you
Right,
picked the
right.
wrong show to like jump into the Marvel Cinematic Universe." So I think that's what they're doing, is trying to like set something for people who may be new or not as caught up on the comic books or even the movies. But still, it's like next season, I hope they just go for the jugular, because like that Doctor Strange episode, like I want them to go dark like that. Let's go dark and stay dark.
Yep, Magdiela, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, no, I think I'm excited because I think from our end, from our perspective, is like we wanted to do all these things, but with time, budget, as you know, sometimes you
Hmm.
can't. But it is exciting that you did get the feeling we want that you wanted that we wanted. Maybe it wasn't as earlier, but it is exciting to know that, like, okay, it
Yeah.
worked and we really wanted earlier, and all these things. Like, one thing to know is, like, we're all fans, right? So everybody who's working on the show, we all seen the movie so many times, we're so aware of everything. So there's a lot of this, like, people will know, right? People will know. No, they won't know. They won't know. So if you don't know, you don't know. So it was harder because we didn't have someone in the room who's not seen these, right?
Right.
Like, I was the newbie. I was a newbie and I'd seen it like, I was the least fan and I'd seen every movie, and I had, like, I knew some of the planet names at the early stage. Like, so it was hard. Now that we go back, we kind of go back to, like, oh yeah, I guess, like, if you don't know that, you wouldn't know that, right? So I think
Hmm.
that from that perspective, it's interesting because we can now see, watching it back, and we, among the crew and among the teams, we kind of comment on, like, this stuff. So um and you're right on Thor. Like, that is the vibe we were always going for, and that's kind of, we were like, he's not dumb. He's just like, he literally,
Yeah,
he's
I was
never
arguing with
lost.
one of my
He's
siblings, and they were just
no,
like, "I don't like this dumb Thor." I'm like, "He's
he's
not
clean.
dumb. He's like
He ain't never
so
got
above
no
it all that,
problems. Yes.
yeah."
He
He's
always
like,
just kind of
"Okay."
does this, and then anything happens. So that's sort of the thing. Like, that's why he's in Vegas partying. Like, he's like a rich party boy who doesn't
Hmm.
have any problems because all he can do is, like, call daddy. We kind of,
He's
like,
like a dude bro with power.
exactly. That's exactly. And we call him bro. That was just when we did the record with him. We were like, you're like a bro. You're like a rich kid. Like, think like Gossip Girl. Like, think like all these words for that are, true. Like, that was the vibe. It was just like, you have all this money in the world. You have all this power in the world. Like, you can throw a
Hmm.
party in our earth and just take over the whole, like, Vegas. Like, think about that. Like, so I like that. Also, the Gamora, I can't tell you much, but it's such a. I'm glad that it's still going to be for season 2. And it was a really hard episode because, when you have and all I can say is, when you have a a world that's coming in the, I don't want to say much, but in the Eternals, which is like space,
Yeah, I
we
tell people,
have,
if you read the comic books, you kind of have an idea of where it could go. You're not.
yeah.
I'm not
So
certain where they'll land, but I have an idea of where it could go. I also think it's interesting that Tony had to go to space to live, because he caught the L this entire
Every
season. This is the
episode.
only universe we've seen him in where he did not die.
But he did not. And if you notice, he has, like, a whole. We were like, how do we keep him alive there? Well, he's gonna have all this
Right.
crazy machinery for him to, like, be able to be there and feel like he belongs in space.
Hmm.
So I think that in this case, I can tell you that space is really important, and Gamora is awesome. So that's that. And kind of going back on the, we wish we could have that like friendship, or like that, like, hey, we're a team earlier. The best way we were able to answer that was between the relationship between Natasha and Peggy,
Hmm.
kind of being
Yes.
like, hey, in our world, like, it's called BFFs, like, like, we are friends, like, you trust 3 people, not, and I think that was our way to kind of show that their connection is multiversal, like, even
Hmm.
though you go to a new world, and if you notice at the end, you have it's like, hey, you're not my Natasha, but you still have the same vibe. So that was our way to try to kind of answer that, because we also felt that, like, okay, but we only have what 25 minutes to compile everything. But again, it's kind of exciting just to kind of feel that it was understood overall.
Yes,
I'm
and I will go ahead,
sorry.
J'Aaron.
I'm so interested to see how season 2 is going to roll out, because if you read the comics, then you know, one, he's not the only watcher. There's like a collective of them. And two, he's notorious for intervening when he's not supposed to. So now I'm wondering if he's going to have to answer for his crimes, and that's going to go.